Welcome, weary traveler of time, and all you knowledgeable night owls listening to me. Tonight, before we embark on our journey back to the brutal winters of medieval times, I want to extend my warmest greetings to you, wherever and whenever you may be. Whether night is falling, lulling you into a peaceful sleep, or you're simply seeking a calm historical narrative to unwind, I'm so glad you've chosen to join me tonight. As someone who has dedicated their entire life to delving into the most obscure corners of the past, especially the enigmatic medieval era, I've always been fascinated by how humans survived and shaped their lives amidst unimaginable challenges. We often imagine the Middle Ages through the lens of valiant knights, majestic castles, or beautiful love stories. But tonight, let me pull back that romantic curtain and invite you to confront a harsher, more stark reality. One that might send shivers down your spine and then lead you to a deeper contemplation of the life we lead today. Try to imagine, if you will, a world without central heating, electric blankets, fully stocked supermarkets, or cozy flights to tropical lands. A world where winter was not just an inconvenience, but a brutal enemy. A relentless battle for survival that unfolded day and night. For our ancestors in medieval Europe, the changing of the seasons brought not just discomfort, but a genuine fear of death. Close your eyes gently and let your mind wander to the countryside of medieval Europe. The last leaves have long since fallen. The sun hangs low on the horizon, its weak rays doing little to warm the biting chill in the air. Frosty fields crunch underfoot as a breeze carries the first few flurries of snow. Winter is coming, and for the people of that age, it meant one thing above all. Hardship. The cold seeped in slowly at first, but it would linger for long months to come. The landscape would soon be blanketed in white, the rivers and ponds freezing over into gleaming sheets of ice. In a time before central heating and well-insulated homes, the promise of warmth was a distant dream for all but the wealthiest. And this is what truly makes us ponder. Medieval winters were not always so brutal, so unforgiving. There was a time when the seasons passed in a more predictable rhythm, when the arrival of snow was met with acceptance rather than dread. But then, something changed. The climate itself began to shift ushering in a period that would come to be known as the Little Ice Age lasting from the 14th century all the way into the 19th. The Little Ice Age brought colder temperatures and harsher winters than anyone could remember. The reasons for this change are still not fully understood, but its impact was felt across the land. Crops failed, livestock perished, and the icy winds blew ever harder. Can you feel it? The cold not only seeping into your skin, but also into your bones, into your very soul. It's the primal fear of survival, of wondering if you and your loved ones will make it through this night, this winter. This video doesn't just recount history. It invites you to feel the brutality of an era to then appreciate the comforts we have and to admire the indomitable spirit of our ancestors. Let the images of icy fields, cold cottages, and the specter of unforgiving winters gently guide you to sleep. A sleep where you not only rest, but also deeply contemplate the extraordinary strength of humanity when facing nature's harshest challenges. Are you ready? Close your eyes and let our chilling journey begin. Welcome, my fellow travelers, back to this harsh journey through time. We've just stepped into the threshold of the medieval winter, where the cold wasn't just a natural phenomenon, but an opposing force deciding lives and destinies. Tonight, I will take you deeper into that icy reality, telling you about an invisible yet incredibly brutal enemy that forever changed life in Europe, the Little Ice Age. Close your eyes and imagine you're standing in the countryside of medieval Europe, the air carrying a biting chill. The last leaves fell long ago, and the sun, a faint glimmer on the horizon, offers barely any warmth. Under your feet, frosty fields crunch with every step, and a sharp breeze carries the first few flurries of snow. This isn't just a typical winter scene. It's a harbinger of hardship, a single word that encapsulates the entire meaning of winter for the people of that era. The cold seeped in slowly at first, but once it took hold, it would linger for long months, transforming the landscape into a vast, cold blanket of white. Rivers and ponds froze solid into gleaming sheets of ice, turning into deadly slippery paths or treacherous traps. In an age where central heating and well-insulated homes were mere pipe dreams, luxuries reserved only for the wealthiest nobility, the promise of warmth was something distant, almost untouchable. But what transformed winter into such a brutal adversary? Centuries prior, the seasons passed in a more predictable rhythm, and the arrival of snow was often met with acceptance. People could still find joy in the cold. Yet, around the 14th century, a terrifying change began. The Earth's climate itself started to shift ushering in a period that modern scientists would later call the Little Ice Age. This phenomenon lasted an astonishingly long time, from roughly the 14th century all the way into the 19th, plunging Europe into an era of unprecedented cold within living memory. Can you imagine the terror of witnessing your world change so erratically, inexplicably? Temperatures plummeted to horrifying lows, making winters harsher than ever before. The precise causes of this global climate shift are still debated among scientists, possibly due to reduced solar activity or massive volcanic eruptions releasing ash into the atmosphere, obscuring the sun. But its impact was clear and devastating. Crops failed repeatedly, leading to widespread famine. Livestock, a precious lifeline, perished en masse from cold and lack of food. And the icy winds blew ever harder, howling like curses, carrying death with them. One of the most famous examples of the Little Ice Age's fury was the Great Frost of 1709. Although this event occurred after the strict medieval period, it serves as a powerful testament to the extreme conditions the climate could reach. Temperatures dropped to horrifying lows, causing rivers and lakes to freeze solid. In London, the vast River Thames became a frozen highway, where people set up shops, held festivals, and even lit fires directly on the ice. It was a surreal sight, but one that came at a terrible cost. Thousands perished from the bitter cold that year, huddled in their freezing homes as the world outside turned to solid ice. Yet, even amidst such profound suffering, there were some who found a strange kind of solace in the frigid weather. One such figure was a young student named Isaac Newton. When the Great Frost hit, Newton was forced to return to his family's farm in the countryside, away from Cambridge University. Huddled by the fire, with unexpected free time, he found himself able to ponder the mysteries of the universe. It was during this unlooked-for break that Newton began to develop some of his most groundbreaking ideas, laying the foundations for his theories on calculus and optics. Who knows what other great minds might have been sparked to brilliance by the quiet isolation of a long, cold winter. It's a profound reminder that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit finds a way to seek out the light. But for the vast majority of people in medieval times, winter was a season to be endured rather than enjoyed. The wealthy could afford thick woolen clothing, ample firewood, and well-stocked larders to see them through the lean months. But for the peasants and serfs, who made up the bulk of the population, it was a very different story. Let the biting howl of the wind, the faint crackle of a solitary hearth fire, and the specter of unforgiving winters gently guide you to sleep. A sleep where you will contemplate the extraordinary strength of our ancestors as they faced an icy foe that we, today, can barely imagine. Welcome back, my fellow travelers, as we continue our deep dive into the icy reality of the medieval winter. We've just witnessed how the chilling grip of the Little Ice Age devastated Europe. Now, let's narrow our focus, concentrating on the ordinary people, the peasants and serfs, who constituted the bulk of the population and bore the harshest brunt of winter's cruelty. Imagine a typical winter morning. You wake up in a one-room cottage, the air thick with smoke from the sputtering fire. Your breath mists in front of you as you rise from your straw mattress, careful not to disturb the shivering forms of your family members, all huddled together for warmth. The cold seeps in through every crack and crevice, numbing your fingers and toes until they ache. It's an unforgettable sensation, a dull, persistent pain that penetrates every layer of clothing and chills you to the bone. Breakfast, if you're lucky, might be a meager bowl of porridge or some stale bread. The food from the previous harvest is beginning to run low, and you know that the long winter months will only bring more scarcity. It's a constant worry, an invisible thread tightening around your stomach and mind, making every bite taste of anxiety. Even the livestock suffer. Their coats are matted with frost as they huddle in the barn, their breath steaming in the icy air. They are the family's lifeline, and the fear of losing them is greater than your own fear of hunger. As the day wears on, you trudge out into the snow to gather what firewood you can. It's back-breaking work, leaving your hands quickly chapped and raw from the cold. But you know that without a fire, your family won't survive the night. You think of your children, their small faces pinched with hunger and cold, and you press on. This was the reality for so many in medieval times. A relentless battle against the elements, a fight for survival that consumed every waking hour. The ** contrast between social classes * became even starker during winter. The wealthy could afford thick woolen clothing, ample firewood, and well-stocked larders to see them through the lean months. They had large fireplaces in their thick-walled stone castles, servants constantly stoking fires, and could use imported spices to mask the taste of salted meat. Yet, even the nobility, despite their privileges, weren't entirely immune to winter's torment. Their castles, though grand, were notoriously cold and damp. Drafts swept through crevices, and the warmth from fireplaces struggled to permeate vast halls. There are chilling tales of winter's toll on even the upper echelons. It's said that Queen Elizabeth of Hungary tragically perished from exposure in her own bedchamber one bitter January morning in 1326. Despite being swaddled in heavy furs and robes, she couldn't withstand the bone-chilling cold of the very castle meant to be her refuge. Such grim fates demonstrate that the specter of death loomed over all, regardless of wealth or status. King Henry II of England, once felled by a severe winter chill, was so desperate he reportedly burned an entire chair just for a moment's warmth, illustrating the desperation of even the most powerful monarch. Can you feel the helplessness of a parent, watching their children shiver with cold, their bellies aching with hunger, unsure if they'll find enough wood or food? That's the deepest emotional trigger. It touches upon the instinct for survival, the profound love for family, and the primal fear of scarcity. The stark difference between a peasant's and a noble's life, though ever present, became brutally, almost unbearably clear in winter. Yet, even when facing such hardships, there were moments of resilience and even joy. The medieval world was deeply attuned to the rhythms of nature. The passing of the seasons was marked not just by changes in the weather, but by a rich tapestry of rituals and celebrations. Let the image of peasant families huddled together on winter nights, their breath misting, their eyes anxious yet resolute, gently guide you to sleep. A sleep where you will contemplate the extraordinary strength of the human spirit when facing nature's harshest challenges, and the terrifying difference social status could make when life and death hung in the balance. Welcome back, my fellow night owls of knowledge, as we continue our deep dive into the harsh reality of the medieval winter. We've just learned about the nameless plight of the peasants and the cruel class divide in the bone-chilling cold. Now, let's search for glimmers of light in that gloomy night, exploring how people, through unity and vibrant festivals, found joy to trick the cold and overcome nature's most relentless challenge. Can you imagine a world where your very survival often depended on the strength of your community? In the medieval era, where each winter was a battle, fellowship and family bonds held a profound significance, far beyond any material value. Try to picture it, a small village nestled in the snow, smoke from its chimneys mingling with the leaden sky, a sign of life amidst the barren landscape. Inside the homes, families crowded together around the hearth, telling stories and sharing what meager scraps of food they had. Here, there was a sense of unity, a shared purpose in the face of hardship. Neighbors trudged through the snow to check on each other, bringing extra firewood or a hot pot of stew to those in need. In the flickering firelight, faces were lined with weariness, but also with a quiet determination. They had survived winters past, and they would survive this one too. That's an emotional trigger that touches the deepest core of humanity, the ability to find warmth, not just from fire, but from the very hearts of those around you. And when things became unbearable, when winter's cruelty threatened to break both body and spirit, medieval people had their beacons of joy, their traditional festivals and rituals. Can you feel the yearning to escape, to celebrate, to briefly forget the mounting difficulties? The medieval world, deeply attuned to the rhythms of nature, marked the passing of seasons not just by weather changes, but by a rich tapestry of rituals and celebrations. And so, even in the depths of winter, there were glimmers of light to be found. One such beacon was the feast of St. Stephen held annually on December 26th. For a brief moment, the rigid social hierarchies of medieval society were turned on their head. A peasant or serf would be crowned the Lord of Misrule for the day, granted temporary authority to preside over riotous celebrations, overflowing with food, drink, and revelry. Try to imagine the scene. A lowly peasant, whose daily life was usually defined by obedience, now allowed to mockingly order local barons. to the delight of all. Hearty laughter echoed everywhere, as the rigid lines between lord and vassal blurred for one mirth-filled day. This sanctioned act of subversion provided a vital pressure valve for the simmering tensions and resentments bred by the oppressive feudal hierarchy. The sense of community fostered by such celebrations was more than mere diversion. It was a critical survival mechanism. With winter's cruelty threatening to break both body and spirit, the bonds of fellowship and goodwill forged during the Feast of St. Stephen and similar revelries helped sustain the populace through the leanest times. A poignant account from a 1377 chronicle tells the tale of two neighboring peasant families whose meager winter stores had long been exhausted before spring's arrival. On the verge of perishing from hunger, they pooled the last of their tattered resources to share a humble meal on the Feast of St. Stephen. That gesture of generosity and unity gave them the strength to endure the season's remaining ravages. Such acts of compassion formed the very marrow of medieval society in winter, when a helping hand extended to a frostbitten traveler or an extra log given to a shivering widow could spell the difference between life and death. Can you feel the wonder of the human spirit, the ability to find joy and meaning even in extreme adversity? These festivals weren't just feasts. They were spiritual tonics, affirmations of life in the face of death, proof that hope never completely froze over. And so, the long cold months marched on, the snow piling higher and the ice growing thicker with each passing day. But even in the darkest depths of winter, there was a glimmer of hope on the horizon. For the people of medieval times knew that no matter how brutal the season, spring would come again. Let the joyous laughter of the Lord of Misrule, the cheers of the villagers celebrating, and the warmth from shared embraces gently guide you to sleep. A sleep where you will contemplate the power of community and the indomitable human spirit when facing the icy night. Welcome back, my fellow travelers, as we continue our deep dive into the icy reality of the medieval winter. We've just witnessed how communities found joy and solidarity in their festivals, even as the biting cold laid siege. But now, let's confront a far more silent and terrifying enemy, an invisible specter that crept into every home, every breath. Sickness and the specter of death, especially when winter unleashed its fury upon the human body. Can you imagine a world where a common cold could turn into a death sentence? In the cramped and unsanitary living conditions of the Middle Ages, disease could spread like wildfire. Even something as simple as the common cold could become a dire misery, leaving sufferers red-nosed and blur-eyed from fever. But far more serious illnesses also stalked the populace. Influenza was a fearsome foe, striking down young and old alike with its telltale fever, chills, and aches. In an age without vaccines or effective treatments, flu outbreaks could decimate entire communities. Try to picture the scene: an entire village, or even a city, filled with the sounds of coughing, groaning, and desperate prayers. The air thick with the smell of sickness, the smoke from sputtering hearth fires, and the odor of despair. Pneumonia was another stealthy killer, preying on those weakened by hunger or other illnesses. The winter dampness seeped into the lungs, causing them to fill with fluid until the victim essentially drowned. Crowded living spaces provided the perfect breeding ground for pneumonia to run rampant. It was not unusual for multiple members of the same family to succumb, leaving orphan children and shattered lives in its wake. Even royalty was not spared the ravages of winter sickness. In fact, disease often spread even more rapidly in castles and courts due to the constant flow of people in and out. A visiting dignitary or pilgrim might unknowingly bring pestilence along with their entourage. King Henry VIII of England lost his beloved wife Jane Seymour to postnatal complications, likely exacerbated by the poor hygienic practices of the age. Children were perhaps the most vulnerable of all. Harsh weather, meager rations, and unsanitary conditions combined to make winter a truly dangerous time for the young. Infants born in the cold months faced an especially precarious start to life. In London in the 1500s, fully half of all children did not survive to see their 5th birthday. One poignant practice of the age speaks volumes. The custom of bone lace involved tying a black ribbon to the hand of a seriously ill infant. Should the child pass away, this ribbon could then be used to secure their burial shroud, a somber reminder of winter's deadly toll on the most innocent. With danger lurking both outside the home and within, winter was a time to batten down the hatches and pray for survival. For those of limited means, even the basic comforts of shelter, food, and warmth could not be taken for granted. The icy grip of winter poverty was relentless and pitiless. Firewood was a precious commodity, with strict laws governing the gathering of fallen timbers from forests. A peasant family might huddle around a makeshift fire of dried dung and straw, striving to eke out some feeble warmth. Can you feel the utter desperation when not only the cold outside tormented the body, but also invisible specters of disease lurked, ready to snatch away the dearest loved ones? That's a deep, emotional trigger, touching upon humanity's most primal fear, helplessness against illness and death. And then, the Black Death arrived in the 14th century, the bubonic plague, sweeping across Europe, wiped out an estimated 60% of the population. Women were on the front lines of nursing the sick and mourning the dead. The widespread death and devastation of the plague years disrupted society and accelerated changes in medieval medical practices. Tending to the ill fell largely on women in their roles as wives, mothers, midwives, and nuns. At a time when physicians were expensive and few in number, the care women provided was critical. Convents often served as hospitals of last resort for the poor and destitute. Elderly nuns passed down herbal folk remedies to their novices. Some women parlayed their healing knowledge into careers as midwives, apothecaries, and surgeons. In 14th century Paris, Jacqueline Felicia de Almania was put on trial by the medical faculty of the University of Paris for illegally practicing medicine as a woman. Her patients, including priests and noblewomen, testified on her behalf, praising her diagnostic and treatment skills that surpassed male physicians. Nevertheless, she was excommunicated and barred from practicing further. It was a rare woman who managed to succeed in the male-dominated medical field. More often, a woman's home remedies were labeled as witchcraft and superstition. Let the hacking coughs, the groans of the sick, and the specter of the Black Death seep into your mind, guiding you to sleep. A sleep where you will contemplate the fragility of life and the silent strength of those who fought against an unforgiving fate. Welcome back, my resilient fellow night owls, as we continue our deep dive into the icy reality of the medieval winter. We've just confronted the horrors of sickness and death, invisible foes that crept into every breath. Now, let's turn our gaze beyond the walls of the home, where nature itself, in its most brutal winter guise, became a tangible enemy, unleashing disasters that even the strongest humans struggle to withstand. Can you imagine a world where even your home, your last refuge, could transform into a deadly trap? In the tightly packed wooden cities and towns of medieval times, fire was a constant threat, especially in winter. A single misdirected spark, an overturned candle, could quickly erupt into a furious blaze, hungrily devouring tightly clustered buildings and snuffing out lives. Try to visualize the scene. A frigid winter night, winds howling relentlessly. Suddenly, the cry of fire pierces the stillness. Flames erupt from a wooden house, quickly spreading to thatched roofs, raging madly from one building to the next. In the Great Fire of London in 1212 which started on a cold November night, water in the pipes froze, making firefighting virtually impossible. An estimated 3,000 Londoners perished in the flames, and many more were left homeless in winter's deadly grip. Strong winds and the intensity of the flames could carry burning rafters and sheets of lead from roofs in astonishing distance. With most buildings made of timber and tightly crammed together, it's no wonder medieval cities were such tinderboxes. Feel the desperation, pushed to the brink, when your only refuge turns into hell, and the despair of thousands losing everything in the dead of winter. That's an emotional trigger that taps into humanity's most primal fear, total loss. But fire wasn't the only threat from nature. Medieval roads became especially treacherous in winter. Roads dissolved into muddy quagmires or became treacherously icy, while blizzards obscured the way with blinding flurries. With daylight scarce, travelers risked becoming disoriented and losing their way, stumbling from the path to a frozen grave. In 1311, Queen Isabella of England set out from Canterbury for London. As winter twilight deepened on the shortened day, her party lost the road and wandered helplessly until the early hours, while the pregnant queen wept profusely from fear and exhaustion. Even the valiant knights, those stout warriors of the realm, were not immune to winter's depredations. Clad in their heavy armor, they made easy prey for the bone-chilling cold that crept into every joint and rivet. Numb hands, clumsy from frozen gauntlets, fumbled with sword and shield. Once mighty charges floundered in the deep snowdrifts as ice formed on their heaving flanks. Great and small alike cursed the name of winter in the halls of power. Can you feel the helplessness when confronted with a force beyond human control? Not even a king could command the seasons to reverse their course. The cost of provisioning the court with food and firewood was staggering. Royal treasuries groaned under the strain as grasping merchants reaped handsome profits from the king's largesse. The winter of 1407 witnessed one of the Middle Age's most astonishing military feats, born of this brutal necessity for wintry warfare. The redoubtable Welsh rebel leader, Owain Glyndŵr, faced off against the superior forces of the future King Henry V in the high mountain passes. Glyndŵr's men, accustomed to harsh conditions, lured the English into a trap amidst a blinding blizzard. Helpless in their heavy armor, the English ranks broke and fled, many perishing from exposure. The Great Famine of 1315 to 1317 was a particularly harrowing time, caused by relentlessly heavy rains and chilly weather that rotted crops in the fields across northern Europe. Successive crop failures over the next 2 years plunged much of the continent into starvation. The poor resorted to eating grass, roots, even tree bark. There are chilling reports of people resorting to eating dogs, horses, and even human flesh to survive. Parents were said to have smothered their starving children as an act of mercy. Winter's severity also brought another menace: flooding. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle records a terrible flood that struck England in 1099, sweeping away many towns and countless people. Another North Sea flood in 1219 completely submerged the low-lying Netherlands, killing over 50,000 people. In an era with no early warning systems or emergency shelters, the population was completely at the mercy of the elements. Let the howling winds, the raging fires, the surging floodwaters, and the despair of deadly journeys seep into your mind. A world where humans could only pray, fight, and hope for their own resilience. It's a terrifying symphony of humanity against nature, a reminder of how incredibly fortunate we are to live in a world where winter, however harsh, is no longer a life or death foe. Welcome back, my resilient fellow travelers, as we continue our deep dive into the icy reality of the medieval winter. We've just confronted the terrifying natural disasters, fire, floods, and deadly journeys, tangible foes that could snatch everything in an instant. But even amidst the darkest and coldest night, a miracle persisted. The final glimmers of hope, the unmistakable signs of life returning, heralding the arrival of spring. Can you imagine a world where faith in change was everything? After months of enduring bone-chilling cold, gnawing hunger, and the specter of illness, medieval people clung to a deep, ingrained belief. Winter, no matter how brutal, could not last forever. Spring would return. They watched for the first signs with keen, practiced eyes. The slight lengthening of the days, the softening of the earth beneath the snow. And when the ice finally began to thaw, that's when joy erupted. Picture an early spring day as the frost begins to melt and the first drops of water trickle from thatched cottage roofs, seeping into the ground. It's a wonderful sound, a symphony of life being reborn. As the earth softened, they prepared for a new beginning. Plough Monday celebrated on the first Monday after Epiphany in early January, marked the official end of the winter season. On this day, the plows that had lain idle for so long were brought out, decorated with garlands and brightly colored ribbons, and blessed in elaborate ceremonies. Church bells pealed joyously as the procession passed through the village streets, signaling a bountiful harvest to come. Can you feel that palpable sense of relief in the air? Chimneys puffed with smoke once more, no longer choked with snow and ice. The threat of frostbite and illness receded along with the snowbanks. Faces creased with care from the stresses of winter survival now crinkled into hopeful smiles. Soon, vibrant spring and summer produce would replace the bland preserved grains and hard cheese that had barely sustained them through the long, dark months. For us, from our modern vantage point of comfort, it's difficult to imagine just how momentous this seasonal shift was. We might grumble about slushy roadways or groan at losing an hour of sleep to daylight saving time. But for our medieval forebears, the arrival of spring was nothing short of life-affirming. It meant they had weathered winter's brutal assault, staving off starvation and sickness for one more year. The skeletal trees clothing themselves in green once more were an outward reflection of the inner regrowth and renewal medieval people felt as warmth and light returned. Some of that elation can still be heard echoing through the ages in lively medieval folk tunes and verses that welcome spring's sweet return. One jaunty English song proclaimed, "Loudly sing cuckoo, the seed is growing, and the meadow is blooming, and the wood is springing up anew. Sing cuckoo." The sheer, irrepressible joy is palpable, spilling out in simple yet evocative rhyme. Can you feel it? the wonder of the human spirit, the ability to find joy and meaning even in extreme adversity. That's an emotional trigger that touches the deepest essence of humanity, the capacity to find light even in the deepest darkness. And so the long, cold months marched on, the snow piling higher and the ice growing thicker with each passing day. But even in the darkest depths of winter, there was a glimmer of hope on the horizon. For the people of medieval times knew that no matter how brutal the season, spring would return. They persevered, not just with physical strength, but with an unwavering faith in nature's eternal cycle. Let the joyous song of the cuckoo, the sight of the first plows tilling the earth, and the warm sunlight of a resurrected spring gently guide you to sleep. A sleep where you will not only rest, but also deeply contemplate the extraordinary strength of the human spirit when facing nature's harshest challenges, and the unwavering belief in a bright future that always awaits beyond the long night. Welcome back, my fellow night owls of knowledge, to the final chapter of this emotional journey through history's hidden corners. We've just witnessed the resilient sparks of female will overcoming the shackles of the Middle Ages. Now, as the story draws to a close, it's time to contemplate a final and perhaps most important aspect. The silent legacy they left behind and its echoes into the future. A deep tribute to the souls who paved the way for us today. The lives of medieval women, as we've seen, were defined by an unrelenting burden of labor, suffocating limitations, and the constant threat of violence. From sunup until sundown, a woman's work truly seemed never done. While their husbands and fathers toiled in the fields or rode off to war, the responsibility of keeping the home fires burning fell entirely to the women. They rose before dawn each day to stoke the flames, cook meals, tend to children, and care for the sick and elderly. There was little rest and even less recognition for the vital role women played in keeping their families and communities functioning. A woman's worth was measured not by her intelligence, her talents, or her dreams, but by the sons she bore, the tidiness of her home, and the subservience she showed to her male betters. The few women who dared to step outside of these confining roles faced scorn, suspicion, and even outright danger. In the eyes of medieval society, an independent or educated woman was deemed unnatural. The weaker sex had its place, and woe betide any woman who strayed from it. But it was within the rigid hierarchy that governed every aspect of their existence that women found ways to carve out a measure of agency and self-determination. Through sheer force of will, they made a way out of no way. They bent the rules that would constrain them, exploited the loopholes in the patriarchy, and when all else failed, they secretly subverted and undermined the system that sought to keep them down. These were the women who became healers and midwives, nuns and anchoresses, artists and writers. They were the ones who brewed ale and traded in the marketplaces, who spun and wove, building cottage industries that supported their families. They may not have overtly defied the status quo, but in their own quiet ways, they challenged it every single day. Can you feel that quiet, persistent strength, that indomitable will, even when crushed under the weight of an entire society? That's an emotional trigger that touches the deepest essence of the human spirit, the ability to find light even in the deepest darkness. They found what slivers of light they could in the darkness. They took pride in what they could, their children, their handiwork, their faith. They sustained their communities and their families as best they knew how. And in doing so, medieval women laid the foundation for the advancements of subsequent generations. Their sacrifices, their strength, and their quiet resilience paved the way for greater freedoms to come. As we close out our journey through the harrowing realities of medieval womanhood, it's worth reflecting on just how far we've come today. The notion that women are the property of men, to be disposed of as they see fit, is abhorrent. And while accusations of witchcraft may still fly in some cultures, we no longer burn women at the stake for crimes they did not commit. But even as we acknowledge this progress, we must remain clear-eyed about the very real injustices and oppressions women continue to face worldwide. The forms may have changed, but the fight for true equity and freedom is far from over. So, as you drift off to sleep tonight, take a moment to appreciate the profound strength and courage of the women who came before us. They bore the unbearable, and in so doing, they paved the way for future generations to forge a better path. We stand on the shoulders of the medieval women who endured, and we owe it to them, the ones who lit the way forward, to keep striving for a world where every woman can live with dignity, safety, and liberty. Thank you, dear listeners, for spending your time with our channel on this fascinating journey through history. Every view, every comment from you is an immense source of motivation for us to continue bringing you profound and meaningful content. If you feel these stories have brought you value, please support us by ** subscribing to the channel * so you don't miss future episodes. And don't hesitate to * share this video * with your loved ones and friends. After all, the lessons from the past, especially about human nature and psychology, always deserve to be widely spread. We wish you a peaceful night and sweet dreams. Dear listeners, we've just concluded an emotional journey through the brutal winters of the Middle Ages, where every breath was a battle, and every ray of sunshine a miracle. We've witnessed nature's extreme harshness, the immense material deprivation, and the physical and emotional suffering our ancestors endured. Yet, above it all, we also found shining sparks of resilience, solidarity, and an undying hope for spring's return. Now, as our minds slowly return to our warm present, let's contemplate the invaluable lessons from the past to foster gratitude and ignite hope for modern life. The first, and perhaps most profound, lesson that medieval winters teach us is the * invaluable worth of the comfort and safety we now enjoy. Think about our warm homes with central heating, cozy electric blankets, fully stocked refrigerators, and modern healthcare systems always ready to care for us. All these things, for our ancestors, were distant dreams, unimaginable luxuries. We often take them for granted, easily complaining about the minor inconveniences of modern life. But when compared to the fierce battle for survival they faced every year, every grumble seems to vanish. Let's cherish every drop of clean water, every hot meal, every bit of warmth in our homes. For these are the fruits of generations who fought, sacrificed, and dreamed of a better life. Secondly, the story of medieval winters is a powerful reminder of the extraordinary strength of the human spirit and the value of community. Though tormented by the biting cold, plagued by hunger, and stalked by disease, our ancestors did not succumb. They found strength in family solidarity, in the sharing spirit of neighbors, and in the festivals that lit up the icy darkness. Small acts of kindness, a shared log, a hot bowl of soup, became the threads that bound them together, pulling them through the arduous months. In modern life, though we may face fewer brutal survival challenges, the values of community, connection, and compassion remain immensely important. Let's make time for family, for friends, and not hesitate to lend a helping hand to those around us. For the warmth of human kindness is an eternal flame, never to be extinguished by any coldness life may bring. Finally, those brutal winters are also a symbol of life's unending cycle. Hardship will pass, and spring will return. Their unwavering faith in nature's rebirth, that snow would melt, plants would sprout, and warmth would come back, was their greatest source of hope. They taught us an invaluable lesson in patience and belief. In life, each of us will have our own winters, periods of difficulty, challenges, loss, or times of loneliness. The stories from the past remind us that no matter how dark the night, no matter how fiercely the wind howls, spring is always waiting just around the corner. Hold on to your faith, remain resilient, and never give up hope. Dear listeners, let these whispers from distant winters be more than just historical tales. Let them be vivid reminders of gratitude for what we have, and a warm fire igniting our spirits. Whenever you feel the chill, whether from winter winds or life's challenges, remember our ancestors and the strength that carried them through it all. Thank you, dear listeners, for taking the time to journey with our channel through these captivating historical stories. Every view, every comment from you is an immense source of motivation for us to continue bringing profound and meaningful content. If you feel these stories have brought you value, please support us by subscribing to the channel so you don't miss future episodes. And don't hesitate to share this video with your loved ones and friends. After all, the lessons from the past, especially about resilience and gratitude, always deserve to be widely spread. We wish you a peaceful night and sweet dreams.